All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now we're going to talk about Chad Mendes because he's making bank, son. He's making bank for BKFC. And I also, I just read this really interesting article from Eddie Hearn, a boxing promoter, about fighter pay in the UFC, fighter pay, structure related to boxers versus UFC fighters, etc. It's really interesting. It's going to be a good read. I'm going to read it with you guys and then talk about it. Now, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. I will tell you this right now. So, for the first time, now that I've got like this, I've got like a microphone and stuff, I was like, I'm going to do a podcast, like a legit podcast. I've never uploaded a podcast. I did it on Jesse on Everything. And I was like, I'm going to talk for an hour. And I just got lucky that I had probably the best topic I've ever done. But I would appreciate, if you've never watched it, go give it a run today. The one that I upload today, I don't know what it's going to be called. Something about, I don't know. It's the only one I'm going to upload today. Jesse on Everything, give it a run. Let me know what you think. I'm not even sure if I'm going to put it in the podcast, but like check it out on YouTube and then tell me what you guys think. Because this is, in my opinion, probably the best video I've ever done on that channel. And I've done some banger videos on that channel. And it's completely nonpartisan, so no one's going to get mad. You're not going to be a Democrat and go on there and be like, oh my God, I can't believe he said those things. I think you'll look and go, damn, that's pretty crazy points that he made there, huh? At least I hope so. Anyway, so let's talk about Chad Mendes. So Chad Mendes came out and said that he's going to make more in his BKFC debut than Francis did in his last fight, which is bananas, first of all, for multiple reasons. So one thing that you have to say from the beginning is that when they fight in BKFC or in these other organizations, they get to get their own sponsors, right? If you really want to know where the UFC stuck it to the fighters for real, right? Like where, just straight up stuck it to the fighters is when they did the Reebok deal and took away their ability to get sponsorships. I'm not necessarily, I'm going to be honest, I don't know about think. If I were going to give the UFC the benefit of the doubt that I was doing that, I would say maybe they didn't know how much money these fighters were making on the sponsorships, because it's a completely different universe, like a totally different universe. Because you think about it like this, it's like, okay, these low level fighters that you're paying 15 grand to, 10, 12 grand to, like you can pay them 12 grand. But those fighters are still on a big card, so they can sell, marketing placement on themselves and on their banner, etc. That's really valuable. They can make a lot of money, And so that way it's kind of like, because like right now people make it to the UFC and it's like, I made it to the UFC. You're all nice, man. How'd you do? They're all, I made 18,000. Then I paid my team, paid my agent. Yeah, so they're all, you made $18,000? Like, yeah, I didn't win. I was on 18-18. I didn't win. $18,000 you're fighting in the UFC? Mm-hmm. Where like, if they were on a main card and they were on an 18-18 and they could get sponsors, they could make another $80,000 to $100,000. Like this is an enormous swing, dude. They can make more than that even. Who knows? Like if they're on some big card, like that's an enormous swing. And so when the UFC did the Reebok deal, I mean, they just took that from them. Like I know guys get like sponsorship money, but unless every fighter who's ever talked about it publicly is misrepresenting it, it sounds like that money basically just went away. They get like a very, very, very small piece of what they were getting before. And candidly, just gonna throw this out there, maybe the UFC is leaving money on the table. I don't know. Like if you get a bunch of actually they don't ever leave money on the table. What am I talking about? They probably are getting so much money from those companies. Anyway, but yeah, so I guess the point I'm making is Chad Mendes making over 600K with BKFC. They implied that half of that or maybe up to like half of that is coming from sponsors. And, but either way, here's where my head's at. So let's say he's making 350K from BKFC, right? Now, Paige Van Zandt went to BKFC also, which means they paid her a fair amount of money. I remember I think they paid her like $1 million or something. Like here's the thing. If you're going to do a startup organization, right? A startup fighting organization, I do think that BKFC has the right recipe, which is that you have to be doing something different. It can't just be MMA. Like, unless you're Khabib, and Ali Abdelaziz, like they'll do fine. But like, it can't just be like another MMA thing. Like, BKFC is different, right? Now, my personal opinion is they're blowing it. I think that they should be doing it in MMA gloves. I think the bare knuckle thing actually keeps people away. I think it's actually hurts their brand. I think like initially you're like, bare knuckle, damn. But I think even some fight fans are like, you hear how other fighters talk about it. They're like, dude, don't go do bare knuckle, man. I don't really understand why, but like, I know for me, I don't want to see a fight end with cuts. I don't necessarily need to see a dude's like, 5 teeth fly out. I need to see a guy's face look like this. Like, I love the fights. I love violence. I watch street fights. I watch people get knocked unconscious and I enjoy them. I'm not like some holier than thou guy. But as a sport, I genuinely think that they would be better off in MMA gloves. That's just my opinion. But nonetheless, they're paying guys, like, they're losing money is my point. Of course they're losing money. And they're losing money just like UFC lost money when they started. It's like, it's really hard to build like a viewer base that's going to make you successful, especially when you have UFC as a juggernaut and you're trying to sell pay-per-views. Like, people only have so much expendable income, like, unless they're lunatics like me that are like, I'll sell my shoes to make sure I can watch this pay-per-view. Although BKFC wouldn't fall into that, but like UFC, I'm never missing one, dude. I don't care if I'm homeless. Like, I'll sneak into a Hooters and like give them 20, whatever. Like, I'm never missing an event ever. And I never stream them. But like, like regular folks, they've only got like so much money, dude. Like, so, you're like, oh, okay, the UFC is that weekend. Well, we'll do ours this weekend. You're like, dude, the UFC just charged $75, man. You're gonna have a hard time getting people to pay again. And there's a big, like, Chad Mendes is a good get. Paige Van Zant's, like a good get. But like, they're not Kamaru Usman, like they're not like Jorge Masvidal. They're not one of these like really big guys. And if you wanted to get them, you'd have to pay them millions. And that probably wouldn't pay or might pay itself back. Maybe. Like, the fight business is tough, man. When you really think about it, like you really think about the numbers, the fight business is tough. Now, let me read you this article that Eddie Hearn, he said, Eddie Hearn discusses fighter pay in MMA versus boxing, and he's surprised UFC has been able to retain stars like Conor McGregor. In recent years, now the only reason they've been able to do that is because they lock them into these really long contracts before they become stars. In recent years, fighter pay, particularly in the UFC, has become one of the most talked about stories in MMA. Over the past year, fighters like John Jones, Jorge Masvidal have complained outright about the UFC's pay structure, both guys that were on Malky's team at the time. Meanwhile, lesser-known fighters like Sarah Alpar have set up GoFundMes to cover the cost of training camp, which she wouldn't have to do if they were allowed to do the sponsorship still. And the YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul, looking for any chance to blast Dana White and the UFC over their business practices. Story doesn't appear to be going anywhere anytime soon. Fellow combat sports promoter Eddie Hearn, things may change at some point. Hearn, chairman of boxing promoter Matchroom Sport, recently spoke to Ariel Helwani. I think that fighter power has drifted down the UFC probably a little bit slower than it did in boxing. Very old promoters, every fighter that I represent is my boss. Whether they're a kid debuting in their first fight, I work for the fighter. That's my mentality, the old school. The couldn't say it. The old school, the couldn't say it. What? Fighter power in boxing for a while now, they've become the boss. They become in control of their own destiny. For UFC, where they've been very smart, it's such an honor to get a UFC deal. You see kids coming out of Bellator or Cage Rage or whatever it is, and the thought of going to the UFC is everything. But I feel in the UFC, they don't want you to get too big. And when you do, I used to almost laugh at Conor because I could just imagine just the disruption that he was causing in that organization, because that's not really the name of the game. We don't want a star that is bigger than the UFC. Conor McGregor became bigger than the UFC, really, and that's a nightmare for those guys. Now, that's interesting. So, I think that you working for the fighter is good in theory. I think that comparing boxing to MMA as a sport is non-comparable because MMA is so much better. And the reason for that is because of all the things they're talking about with the UFC. And part of that has to do with their business practices and locking people in and being able to secure and make sure that people are going to fight the best guys. Khabib said that in an interview the other day. He said he likes the way the UFC does it. Now, he ended up being a guy who makes $10 million a fight, but like, he likes it because it ensures that the best guys fight the best guys. Boxing is a free-for-all. It's nuts, man. Pacquiao and Mayweather took till they were 60 years old to fight each other when they had 10 years that they, I don't know about 10, but certainly like 6 to 7 where they were in their primes and everyone wanted to see them fight and they just didn't. That would have never happened in the UFC, dude. But it being a nightmare for those guys with Conor, I mean, what they ended up doing is they just ended up giving Conor an absolutely unprecedented deal. And like we've said a million times, we know that because they didn't fight him in 2020 when they didn't have the gate. When they didn't have the gate, they're like, we can't afford to put him in there. He must be getting a fuckload of money, man. And he said, McGregor has indeed proven to be challenging for the UFC to work with since ascending to the status of global icon. The Irish superstar has retired from MMA on multiple occasions. That's just him. That's Conor negotiating. Conor's in a different position than Triple C and anybody else. I'm not like bagging on Triple C. It's just Conor is in a very, very unique situation because the UFC actually needs those pay-per-view buys. Like they need to hit those numbers. Even working in a deal with his Proper 12 whiskey company. For Hearn, the fact that UFC could somehow even stay in business with McGregor and fighters like him is impressive enough, given their earning potential outside the UFC. I mean, yeah, but like Conor's a mixed martial arts fighter. Like, what's he going to do? He's going to go like start an MMA promotion. Everyone's under contract with the UFC and then just headline every show. Like he can do a boxing match, but like people aren't going to pay for that forever. And like what he should do is exactly what he did. Get an incredible deal with the UFC. Don't forget that the representation the fighter has, it's their responsibility to put the best deal together possible. What surprised me is the length of time they've been able to manage individuals as they've grown. So Conor was a good example. I always thought Conor would just walk away from the UFC, start up his own promotional arm of the MMA, and it would be very interesting. Dude, okay. I started this like smart guy. Hey, smart guy, what fucking show are you watching, dude? What movie are you referring to here that he would just start his own MMA promotion where he's going to make more money than the UFC? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, no, I mean, no offense. You sound like a smart guy. And like if you were saying he'd go do some like exhibition boxing matches and go get the whole thing, right? Like not just, him and UFC split whatever they did with Mayweather, like go do another boxing match and take the whole thing. But start an MMA promotion. How? I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know. That seems like that seems risky. And I mean, you'd have the entire organization riding on his back, and there'd be no one for him to fight. If by some bad miracle he lost, the entire thing collapses on itself. He'd have to invest tons of money. He has to take tons of risk. UFC takes no risk. I mean, obviously, you'd be able to get investors in 5 seconds for that. But like, I'd go back to the beauty of the UFC, which is that join the UFC dream, blah, 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 blah. He's just basically saying what I was saying. Like, they lock people in. They don't want anyone to be too big of a star. I don't like, there's no way that they don't want another Conor McGregor. I think they just want to be able to have him managed and under control. Here's the thing that I would say, okay? If you're a fighter and you're watching this video, this is one thing that I would highly suggest to you. I would make sure that your representation is working for you. That's all. Like, make sure that your representation is working for you. There are 2 ways that people do it well, okay? 2 ways. You've got Markel, go to war. Hopefully win. Ali Abdelaziz, get favorable terms for your fighters, right? Better than everyone else. Have them stack the cards of your fighters, okay? You don't cause trouble for them, they take care of you, okay? Those are the 2 ways that you can do it. Now, if you're not with one of those two those two managers, okay? And you're just getting like cookie cutter deals all the time, right? Like you're just getting like, your deals don't seem to make sense to you, right? Where you're looking and you're like, the fuck, man? Like, I think I'm more valuable in this and I don't feel like my manager's taking care of me. Maybe they're not, dude. Okay? Maybe they're not taking care of you. Okay? Because if I'm the UFC, this is total fucking speculation. If I'm the UFC, okay? If I'm the UFC, I for sure have managers that like kind of actually work for me, right? Like they actually work for me and they manage a shitload of fighters, right? Because think about it like this, and I'm not saying that this is some like malicious shit that they're doing either. Imagine imagine everyone playing hardball with you all the time, right? Like you've got like, you know, anyone can have their own manager, right? Like any fighter can have their own manager. What if you're dealing with 200 fucking managers? 200 guys that are all trying to like big dick you, you know, like, and their fighters like it's someone that you want to keep, but they're not that valuable. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, dude, I don't have enough hours in the day to deal with these motherfuckers, dude. Okay. What's an easier way to deal with that? And then also make sure that you can keep pay right where you want it is if you have a manager that manages a bunch of people and they pretend they're working for the fighter and they're really working for the UFC. Okay. That's what I would do if I was the UFC. I have no idea if they do that. The only two managers I know are Markel and Ali, and both of them are doing an exceptional job. So like, like I literally don't know any. I know Malky. I know fucking Malky's not working for the goddamn UFC. But I like, if there are managers manage a shitload of fighters and like if the UFC like referred you to them as an example. And I'm telling you right now, I have literally, I just named the three managers I know. I don't know any other manager. I don't know a single name of another. That's not true. I know Kies's manager. He's definitely not doing that. He manages a handful of guys. I'm just saying, like, if this person actually exists, I'm not doing this on purpose, okay? Like, I really don't know if this is that thing. But if the UFC introduced you to your manager, think about that for a second, okay? If the UFC introduced you to your manager, think about it for a second. Your manager is responsible for getting you as much money as possible. You do not want them working for the fucking UFC. Now, having a good relationship with the UFC obviously works because Ali's guys get paid more than everybody else and get stacked fucking cards. That's not what I'm talking about. Anyway, I probably said too much and I probably shouldn't post this, but I'm going to anyway. I love you guys. Peace.